Who are the top 5 newcomers that I believe will make an impact for BYU in 2024 that are joining the program this upcoming semester? We're talking about that. And we're also talking about BYU's search for their 10th and final assistant coach for Kalani Sitake. It's all ahead on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And this is your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports. And we are brought to you today by our title sponsor in FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Simple as that. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. All right, let's dive right in on today's podcast. And I originally had an intention to scrounge up a list of all the return missionaries and newcomers to the BYU football program going into the new year. But one of our eagle-eyed listeners / viewers that's part of our subtext community, and by the way, I should also give a plug for that. If you've not joined our subtext community, it's a great way to interact with the show, interact with myself directly, and it's simple as sending a text message via your cellular device. So I really appreciate this. And Dave pointed out, I said, Jake, maybe you should hold off on doing a full list of the return missionaries coming back for BYU because, as he points out, BYU still has time to add guys to the roster as late as potentially January 15th. I think it's when the add drop deadline typically is a week after school begins for BYU, and BYU classes for the winter semester begin January 8th, if I'm not mistaken. So he said it may be worth holding off on that because at that point, then BYU will actually have gotten potentially a quarterback, a running back, whoever it might be, via the transfer portal enrolled, and then you can have that full list of newcomers, including potential RMs that may you think are going to come back this semester, but maybe gray shirting until the summer or even on in till next winter. So I think it was a very good point made by Dave, but I did want to not leave you guys empty-handed on that front. I want to talk about the 5 newcomers I think will have the biggest impact for BYU from my vantage point right now going into 2024. Now, the number one guy for me is a linebacker. Jack Kelly was an absolute stud the past 2 years for Weber State, most particularly this past year. It's undeniable that he had a Kyle Van Noy-esque type season for Weber State. Now, can he translate that to the FBS / Power 5 football level and do it for BYU in 2024? Well, if he does, he has leveled up and BYU got an absolute steal via the transfer portal. With the return of Ben Bywater, him and Jack Kelly look like the 2 leaders for BYU at that linebacker position going into 2024. Kelly will already have familiarity with the system that Jay Hill runs on defense, having played for Coach Hill for 1 season before Coach Hill joined BYU. Obviously has some affinity for Coach Hill and decided to make the move from Ogden to Provo to join the BYU football program. And it cannot be overstated how big of an impact Jack Kelly might have for BYU, especially with the departures of both Max Tooley as well as AJ Vongpachon from this year. You needed an impact guy at linebacker. And I'm not saying that all the other linebackers on BYU's roster aren't capable. They actually have quite a few young linebackers who I'm very, very intrigued with. But when you can get an impact type player at a position that's got a relative strength for BYU, that's the reason why I'm picking Jack Kelly as one of the impact guys. I really think he's got the capability of being a pass rusher, just an overall stud at linebacker and helping bolster BYU's front 7 that was quite leaky down the stretch. And a big part of that will be a need for improved defensive line play in front of him, which brings me to impact player number 2, and that is Danny Saili coming into BYU. BYU obviously flipped him from Texas Tech late in the recruiting process. Texas Tech had also flipped him from Oklahoma, but this is a kid who is an absolute, just a stout individual in the middle coming from the junior college ranks. Saili is listed at 6'3", 355 pounds. He's an absolute load in the middle of a defensive line line, and something that BYU severely lacked last year. I talked about this often, that Jackson Cravens was BYU's best defensive tackle. He's absolutely awesome in his lone season as a Cougar. But the tough part was the other guy, whenever he was on the field with him, seemed to be the weak spot for BYU on that defensive line. I think with David Latu, John Nelson, Luke Toamalatai, and now Danny Saili showing up that defensive tackle position for BYU, it goes from one of being a relative weakness and just one that you're terrified of to being one that I think could be very, very strong for BYU. And I think Saili's absolutely got the ability to make BYU's rush defense in particular that much better, just simply due to the fact it's hard to move a 355-pound human being. I played in high school as a 220-pound offensive guard, and I went up against a couple of guys who weighed 280, 290. One in particular, many might recall the name of Matt Reynolds, former BYU star offensive tackle. He played some defensive tackle for Timpview, and I had the luxury, or the assignment, to try and block that dude. Well, Matt Reynolds was already 300 pounds in high school, and I can tell you, it's hard to move guys of that size. And I think Danny Saili at 355 pounds is going to be much harder to move than most people realize, just simply due to the size he's got. He's got a very good strength, plays with great leverage on his tape. So the hope is that he'll translate that to BYU. Impact player number 3 for me for BYU, we'll stick with the defense, and it's Trey Alexander, Therian Alexander out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. He is a guy that BYU was super, super high on. He's got the size requisite to compete at the Power 5 football level at 6'2", 170 pounds. And if he can come into BYU as a true freshman and play like I think he's capable of, you're talking about a guy who could be a multi-year starter for BYU. Might be one of those a rare 3 and done if everything pans out the way that I think he envisions it for BYU. He's got that type of ability, and BYU is very, very excited to have him in their football program. The advantage he will have as a true freshman is the fact that he's enrolling this winter. He'll be enrolling early, and we'll get to go through spring ball with BYU, learn the defense from Jay Hill, talk with guys like Jacob Robinson, who can kind of coach him up on what he needs to do. And there's a decent opportunity for him, if he is as good as advertised, that he could be a day one contributor for BYU at cornerback. I'm not going to say he's going to start right away, but he's got the ability to be in that 2 deep right away at cornerback. And that would be a major plus for BYU to have him come be an impact player for the Cougars. Impact player number 4, flipping over to the offense, Riner Swanson. Now, Ryner is joining a tight end group that's got a number of bodies there, including fellow 4-star prospect Jackson Bowers, who was redshirted this past season. And Bowers, obviously, he's got the bona fides to be a guy that I think BYU is going to look forward to seeing on the football field. But Riner Swanson, similar to Trey Alexander, is enrolling in January. He has plans to play 1 year, then go on a mission. As I understand it, he is still just, he's 17 years old, or just under that, or something to that effect, where he's young enough, he'll play an entire year for BYU and then decide on his future, which apparently includes plans to go on a mission. But the fact that he's enrolling in January, similar to Trey Alexander, Riner Swanson's got an NFL ready, not an NFL ready body, a college football Power 5 level body, 6'5". I think they listed him at 230 pounds. He moves with grace and agility. And you watch his tape from Laguna Beach High School, he is a smooth athlete. And that's one thing I like about Riner Swanson. And I believe he can come in and really impact that tight end position because of the fact he will come in and have a full 9 months to get himself ready for the rigors of playing in the Big 12 at the Power 5 football level. And I think BYU will benefit from having him in that tight end unit. And hopefully it'd be fun to see him and Jackson Bowers really emerge this spring and show that they've got 2 future thoroughbreds, is a best way to term it, at the tight end position that absolutely can impact this offense for Aaron Roderick. It'd be fun to see him do his thing, and we'll see where it ultimately pans out. Now, one other player that I'm looking forward to, he's a guy coming home off of a mission, is Dominique McKenzie. Now, Marcus obviously was a sensation last year on punt coverage and also at cornerback before being lost for the season due to an injury. Well, his twin brother, Dominique, a star track athlete and an incredible wide receiver out of the St. George area, is finally going to be home from a mission and will be enrolling at BYU in January, as I understand it. I had a conversation with Marcus during the season. They say he's very much excited to see his twin brother back home off of a mission. And Dominique McKenzie has got all of the speed to be an impact player for BYU on offense if his body is capable of recovering in time. He's got 9 months plus to get ready for the upcoming season. And what Marcus McKenzie did coming home off of his mission, if Dominique McKenzie is anywhere near that level, you're talking about a guy that could already compete as a true freshman for the BYU football program in a wide receiving core that's got a number, if not all of their production back from last year. So those 5 guys, I'm very, very excited for. The nice part is all of them, I believe, are enrolling early at BYU. And what I mean by enrolling early is they're enrolling here in winter semester starting in January. We'll have the full complement of going through off-season conditioning workouts, spring ball, summer practices, player run practices throughout that period. And then obviously during training camp leading up to the 2024 football season, they will be as well-versed as you could possibly hope for to come in and make that impact for BYU. The only question I have is on a guy like Danny Saili and if he enrolls early or not, but I still only, I'm not necessarily as concerned for him because like I said, 355 pounds. Even if he's just a run stopper on first and second down, that's good enough for this BYU defense because the rush defense was a very, very weak part of BYU this past year, and you need somebody that can hold up in the middle. So I think those 5 guys are very, very capable of having a major impact for BYU. And I'll toss in a 6th. It's also at the wide receiver position, and that is named Cody Hagan. Now, you talk about Dominique McKenzie and true track speed. Well, Cody Hagan was his contemporary in the track world, but production on the football field, unmatched. Cody Hagan was absolutely incredible his senior year for Corner Canyon. Now, as I understand it, he's going to be getting back late spring, early summer, so he will have a shorter period of time. If he doesn't roll at BYU right away, there's a chance BYU could gray shirt him and push him into next winter after the upcoming football season. But if he is as good as I believe he can be for BYU and he gets enrolled, there's no reason to think that he can't come in if his body's ready to go and contribute for BYU. So I guess that's a little bit of a 6th impact guy. If there's anybody else you guys think could have that type of an impact for BYU this year, whether it's a return missionary, a junior college transfer, a grad transfer, portal addition for BYU, or simply one of those RM/high school athletes that is enrolling at BYU that you think can be that guy for the Cougars, drop it in the notes below on YouTube, tweet at us, or drop us a note on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We're at Locked On Cougars, or send me a note, Jacob C. Hatch on Twitter, or you also can always drop us an email, lockedonbyu@gmail.com. And I guess the final way to contact us is via subtext. Send us a text, and obviously I'll be happy to weigh in with that. Now, I had a great question asked of me on our subtext community. It's going to kind of dominate our next conversation here on the show. And it's regarding BYU's 10th and final assistant coach that they have yet to hire after the hire of TJ Woods brought the total to 9 guys under Kalani Sitake. What is BYU targeting with that 10th position, and who might they be looking at for that job, whether it's a tight ends coach, some of you want it to be a quarterbacks coach, a dedicated quarterbacks coach. We'll talk about all that as we continue on right here on Locked On Cougars. Now, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Of course, as weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot with our friends at FanDuel. NFL playoffs are literally on deck, my friends. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Simple as that. The best part about FanDuel is not just have to be NFL. If you want to bet on college bowl games, the upcoming college football playoff, NBA, college hoops with BYU absolutely rocking and rolling in basketball, they've got it all available to you guys now with our friends at FanDuel. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel? There's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, daily specials, and many, many more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and have some fun this NFL season or whatever season you happen to be into. Once again, it's FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started today. It's FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Perry Homes. Now, Perry Homes, whether you're looking for your first home or ready to upgrade to your dream home, Perry Homes has got a house for you. Simple as that. For 50 years, Perry Homes has been Utah's premier home builder with communities throughout the state, and they have many communities, home designs, and price points, all with you, the consumer, in mind, all designed to meet your needs. They have beautiful communities in Davis, Salt Lake, Tooele, and Utah counties along the Wasatch Front. Also, multiple communities in Washington County near St. George if you want to get down to southern Utah and live live down that way. They offer over 50 unique home designs from ramblers to 2 stories to townhomes. And the best part is they have quick move-in homes available if you're ready to move now. And they're offering generous financing incentives through their preferred lender as well. So get started today, my friends, and visit perryhomesutah.com to see what's new in Utah's finest neighborhoods. That's Perry, P-E-R-R-Y, perryhomesutah.com to learn more now. For 50 years, Utah's been coming home to Perry Homes. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I wanted to encourage you guys, if you have not done so already, sign up for our subtext community. You can get a direct interaction with me, insider tidbits before they get on the podcast as soon as I have them. The best part of it coming in the new year is I'll be out at practices and games, to pass along notes as I see them literally in real time. And the best part is you're not having to go to an app to find them, whether it's X or anything else. It comes directly to your phone in the form of a text. It's just as simple as that, my friends. So really encourage you guys to sign up today. It's a 14-day free trial, $4.99 a month after that. And like I said, it's a direct line of communication with myself. You guys can be in the know, as it were, with our great community we're building there on Subtext. I think we got 50 subscribers and counting, and I've got goals in the new year to make it a big part of the podcast. I would encourage you guys to check that out. And that's where I wanted to talk about a question I got today from one of our subtext, community. Comes via Ethan. And Ethan asked this question. He's, Jake, what have you heard on the 10th assistant position for BYU? Are they looking at a tight ends coach? Are they going to go after another position in terms of maybe a quarterbacks coach? What can you tell us about that? Well, I talked yesterday a little bit about what BYU is trying to do in the transfer portal. And I think the thing about this is I talked about the fact when it comes to the quarterback position for BYU, they want to find the right option for them, whether that could be a guy like Gary Bohannon, who's been strongly linked to BYU. But I think the similar type situation is the BYU, as I talked about yesterday with the quarterbacks, is slow playing this a little bit, trying to find the right addition to their coaching staff. Now, as I would expect it ultimately does end up being a tight ends coach. That's just my personal gut feeling on it, as they will replace Steve Clark's position with a tight ends coach that will coach that position. But I think BYU wants to find a guy who is a dynamic recruiter and has probably got the experience at the Power 5 football level to come in and help BYU make inroads in other areas of the country, in Big 12 country, if at all possible. Now, the thing about this is the reason why they may be slow playing it a little bit is they want to see who all is available after bowl games wrap up. Coaches are notorious for moving as soon as bowl games wrap up. Coaches, their head coach tells them, hey, I need you to hang on staff through the end of our bowl game. When the season is officially over, you're free to do whatever you want to do. And that's really when things get moving. There is that AFCA coaches convention that comes up in January. I've had a number of coaches tell me that is like the world's biggest job fair in the college coaching world. Guys are interviewing all the time and talking with guys they know and making moves in their career. So that also could be a place for Kalani Sitake to go and find his 10th and final position coach. But I do expect it to be a tight ends coach. Now, the question is, why wouldn't it be a quarterbacks coach? Maybe take something off the plate of a guy like Aaron Roderick. Let me introduce you guys. If you've not met would be kind of funny, but if you've not heard the name Matt Mitchell, I would encourage you to get to know that name. Matt Mitchell is currently working with BYU as an offensive analyst. For lack of a better term, he is the assistant quarterbacks coach for BYU. He has got bona fide credentials as a position coach, and it wouldn't surprise me if BYU strikes out in other avenues of replacing that position group, that you could see Matt Mitchell elevated to being a full-time assistant coach for the BYU football program. He is that talented. He is that good of a coach. He is that good of an offensive mind. There's a reason why Aaron Roderick has kept him on staff and has him as his personal assistant quarterbacks coach. Now, does that mean that he has got the responsibility for all the quarterbacks under Aaron Roderick's tutelage? No, because Aaron Roderick has the title of offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So Aaron obviously is the guy that's leading the way on that side of things, and I think that'll continue to be that. I think it'll be A-Rod being BYU's OC and QB's coach for the foreseeable future. I understand why you would do that. You want the best player, the most impactful player on the football field to be coached up by the guy who's calling plays for him on Saturdays. But you cannot discount what a guy like Matt Mitchell is doing. The best part about a guy like Matt Mitchell is if you've been paying attention to BYU's offers during the transfer portal era, or I guess this past transfer portal cycle that's ongoing right now, notice who they tag on social media a lot of the time. Coach Meach, and that is Matt Mitchell's Twitter handle. He has been elevated as a special, I guess, in the interim without the 10th assistant coach. He has been elevated to be that 10th assistant coach to go out on the recruiting trail and help find guys for BYU. Most notably, he's been working in the transfer portal and finding quarterback prospects. He's offered a number of 2024 guys, transfer portal quarterbacks, and also even 2025 class QBs as well. And he is a guy who I really think you need to get to know the name of. A lot of people out there are crowing that BYU needs to go out and get a guy like John Beck to come in and be BYU's quarterbacks coach. John Beck would be awesome. But here's the thing. John Beck is making a heck of a lot more money doing what he's doing at 3D QB than he would ever make as an assistant coach at BYU. John loves, bleeds BYU, but there's a certain component of financial interest that you've absolutely got to factor in. And I think that he is looking at that in maybe as most notably of why he's not joined BYU staff. And oh, by the way, he gets to work with like every quarterback around the country, whether it's top level NFL draft guys, current NFL star quarterbacks, and even guys at BYU have gone and worked with him. Keaton Slovis, Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall. I would imagine Jake Retzloff has gotten some tutelage from him. He's doing great work kind of as an ancillary guy on the outside. Matt Mitchell has got the bona fides. I use that term a lot, but he's got the credentials to really be that coach that BYU needs at that quarterback position. Now, the quarterback play last year, I get it disappointed. Keaton Slovis, obviously, when he went down injured, and then Jake Retzloff going 0 and 4, I should say, down the stretch. That left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. But I can tell you, it left a bitter taste maybe more so in the mouths of guys like Aaron Roderick and Matt Mitchell, and they are doing their absolute darndest to rectify that by finding the best quarterback or quarterbacks. We'll see how things pan out to come in and join this BYU football program. They might be higher on Jake Retzloff than anybody out there, and that's why they haven't necessarily added a number of portal guys. And they're very well maybe thinking that a guy like Noah Lugo could come in and be an impact guy for BYU as a true freshman. But get to know the name Matt Mitchell. He is a guy who is on staff, who's already been working for years with BYU's quarterbacks, and there's a reason why he is sticking around BYU. There's a reason why BYU values him so highly, and I would hope that BYU holds on to him for a while longer because I really like his style and the way he goes about his work as an offensive analyst. And I think I said ostensibly his unofficial title is the assistant quarterbacks coach for Brigham Young University. All right. Hopefully that answered the question for you, Ethan. But if it didn't, feel free to reach out. And if you have other questions, I'd be happy to lend my expertise as much as possible and answer those questions for you guys. But like I said, I do give priority to questions sent into our subtext community because I'm going to reward y'all for being as loyal as you are and obviously contributing financially to the show via that method. All right. Coming up here in just a minute, we're going to round out today's show with a couple of notes on BYU basketball. Got some intel on some injury concerns for BYU. They have one more game in the non-conference slate against Wyoming coming up on Saturday, and then it's on like Donkey Kong. It is Big 12 basketball season, and it's going to be an interesting race. And how is BYU shaping up health-wise? We'll talk about all that as we continue on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Utah Community Credit Union. The Learn and Earn feature part of the UCCU mobile banking app that is paying your entire family to learn about money. I had a New Year's resolution to start using this, the Learn and Earn feature, to learn a little bit smarter and learn more about money. Well, I started using it yesterday, and I got to say, it's actually kind of fun. It's got a new style of breaking down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia. And every time a family member, including myself, completes the topic, you earn points that accrue and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and many, many more. There's age-appropriate content for every member of the family, and the plan is to get my wife and daughter involved here in the near future. All of us can compete against one another and track our progress on leaderboards. The best part is Learn and Earn is available inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can literally play it anytime, anywhere. And the more you play, the more you learn. And of course, the more you learn, the more you earn. It's all available now, part of Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun with becoming more financially literate together. It's all courtesy of UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league in the country. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube today and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel right now. All right. BYU basketball ranked 14th in the country, obviously riding high right now. The metrics out there, if you look at the stats, you look at the net ratings, you look at kenpom.com, you look at the coaches poll where BYU is actually 12th in that poll. There's a lot of good things going for BYU basketball right now. The only concern is there's a few guys who've been on the lam, as it were, and you'd like to see them get healthy in time for Big 12 conference season. Now, one of them did make his debut recently. That's Dawson Baker. Now, he has been slowed by a foot injury that knocked him out of pretty much all of the offseason. He missed their overseas tour, even though he was on the tour, if I recall correctly, but never played. He's been coming back from a foot injury that apparently is still hampering him to a degree. Does that mean that he's going to be able to contribute to the level that he wants to in Big 12 conference play? That is still the hope for BYU. But if it gets any worse, don't be surprised if Dawson Baker sees his season curtailed and maybe he pursues a medical hardship waiver to get the year of eligibility back. This is a kid who was an all Big West, not Big 12, all Big West honoree, multi-time all-conference player at the Big West level playing for UC Irvine. He has got the capability of being an impact player for BYU, but if he's not healthy, why would you keep throwing him out there if he can't contribute to the level you'd like him to? So that is one thing to monitor there. Now, BYU is feeling fairly confident that Jackson Robinson is trending up. I would have imagined that if it were, let's say, Cincinnati last week when BYU took on Bellarmine, he probably would have played. That ankle injury, I think BYU has been very, very just careful, making sure that he is 100%. Jackson Robinson has got all of the ability to be an NBA guy next year. That's crazy to consider, but we're starting to see more and more people pay attention to him in the draft process. I think it was NBA Draft.net last week said that he is potentially the top senior prospect in the NBA draft this upcoming year. And I know that being a senior in the NBA draft is actually kind of a bad thing because you've been dominating a lower, I guess not lower level, but a younger competition. The guys that are 18 and 19 and you're 21 or 22, but those guys are still capable of contributing at a high level. Look at a guy like Jaime Jaquez out of UCLA. He played 3 or 4 years for the Bruins, and he's been an absolute stud early on as a rookie for the Miami Heat. Jackson Robinson has got that type of potential, and people are starting to notice it. And the thing is that I think that he will play this week against Wyoming, test that ankle out, make sure he's ready to go and get kind of that rhythm back before BYU actually enters Big 12 play. That leaves the final question mark injury-wise for BYU right now. What is the status of Fousseyni Traore? He has been out since they played down there in Las Vegas. It was Arizona State, I believe, when he got injured, and we've not seen him since. He's been sitting on the bench in a warm-up uniform for most of this stretch run of the non-conference slate. BYU absolutely needed him in their lone loss against Utah, and I can tell you BYU's going to need him when Big 12 play kicks off against Cincinnati on January 6th, and obviously the 2-month gauntlet they're going to go through with the Big 12 slate. I am hopeful that if he's capable of going, you might throw him out there for a limited amount of minutes against Wyoming, but he is kind of the big mystery that in my conversations with folks around the BYU basketball program, nobody really knows what his status is. And Mark Pope kind of alluded to this. It goes back a couple of weeks now in a post-game press conference. He said he had that hamstring injury last year, and we thought he was going to be out for a while. Then one day he wakes up and he's feeling good to go, and we put him back on the court, and he's fine. And hamstrings are really finicky. As any of you who have suffered a hamstring injury know, they can last a long time. They're very easy to retweak or re-aggravate. So you got to be very careful with this, but I think BYU is doing all the right things. It is my sincere hope that Fousseyni Traore, if he's not available against Wyoming, you see him against Cincinnati on January 6th, but you got to have that guy for Big 12 play because you need all the weapons available to you on the court for Mark Pope to have any hope, it feels like, during Big 12 conference play this year. And having a guy like Big Foose on the court, Dawson Baker, if that foot does heal up, or Jackson Robinson, you got to have all these guys contributing because they are major parts of any success BYU hopes to have, and you got to have them on the court, and you got to have them on the court, hopefully, in short order. All right, so there you go. That's what I got for you guys on this Tuesday edition of the podcast. I want to thank you guys once again for your continued support of the podcast. As always, thank you for making it your first listen of the day, as we often say. Thank you for being everydayers with us here on the podcast, and also a special thank you to those of you in the subtext community as well. Really, really fun to have you guys on board, and would encourage you guys, if you've not signed up already, sign up today. All you got to do is click on the link, whether it's on these YouTube channel, or if you're watching this, or not watching it, listening to it it wherever you get your podcast. It's in the show notes. Click the link, type in your phone number, fill out a little bit of information, and simple as that, you'll be signed up. You'll be able to interact with me directly. Like I said, a 14-day free trial, $4.99 a month after that. And if it's not for you after that 14 days, cancel it, and no harm, no foul, but appreciate you guys checking it out all the same. So a big thank you once again for your support of the podcast. As always, coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll take a little more of a deeper dive for BYU basketball on their final non-conference matchup against the Wyoming Cowboys, an Old Mountain West and WACFO coming to Provo once again in basketball. We'll talk about that, and hey, anything that happens in BYU football, we'll have it covered for you as well. So until then, thank you once again for joining us right here on Locked On Cougars. See ya.